Hello and welcome to the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. Rachael is a speaker, inspirational author, and an overcomer. As Rachael is walking through her own journey of grief, she's challenging others to persevere and overcome their own circumstances. Find out more at rachelflick.com. Here now is your host, Rachael Flick.
Hi friend, welcome back to this week's episode of the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. Today is part 2 of my interview with Gwendolyn Burton. After 3 miscarriages and an adult son who passed away from sudden unexpected death and epilepsy, Gwendolyn Burton is uniquely qualified to help others navigate their grief journey by discussing common challenges and misconceptions. She studied with grief expert David Kessler, founded Sisters in Solace, a support group for mothers of child loss, and is a certified grief educator. Gwendolyn enjoys physical fitness and lives in Aurora, Colorado with her husband, son, and 3 dogs. Gwendolyn, welcome back to this week's episode of the Hopecast.
Thank you so much, Rachel. It's a pleasure to be with you again this week.
Yes, we were having such a beautiful conversation. I love that we get to pick it up. And even just in our little interludes here, I was like, wait, stop. We've got to catch that. People need to hear that. That's so rich. And so one of the things that you touched on last week that I would love to pick up and talk about a little bit more, because my heart goes out to the people who experience compassion fatigue and who are the ones who do walk with us, who do walk those journeys. And I was thinking of another widow's story who said she had this woman who she didn't know before well, and she was the one who, came in and began to clean her kitchen and, brought her toilet paper and was very intuitive about her needs in grief, right? And she just walked with her very intimately for, more than 12 months. And then there was a time where there was kind of a fading away. And when my friend looks back, she says, I know now that she began to go through her own experience of divorce and loss. And so she was no longer able to be present with my friend in the way that she had been, but that she was so integral for the season in which she was available. And so we were talking about grief people or grief support people being able to recognize when their resources have changed, when their emotional situation has changed, when things have transitioned, and they need to phase away as a really intimate support person and allow someone to phase in. And so I would love for you to talk more about what does self-care for the support team look like?
Yeah, that's really important that the support team understand, number one, the need, the importance of their own self-care, as we mentioned last week. That might look like taking that time to assess what's going on in your own life, taking that time to assess, how am I feeling about, or what am I carrying? What kind of grief, what kind of emotions am I carrying? Just as when caregivers of a sick person, they also experience this fatigue. And so I believe that is similar. And so for that grieving person to also recognize, I want to kind of take it off of all of it off of the caregiver, of the support person, because sometimes when our support system pulls away, we may take it very personal, very personal. You aren't there for me. I needed you and you weren't there. You were here and now where are you? I think part of the self-care for both parties is having that conversation. It's having the conversation of saying, emotionally, I'm spent. I don't think I have anything else to give anymore. I want to be here for you. I still love you. You're so important to me. But right now, I need you to understand that just for a while, I need to pull away, or I need to transition out. I need to back out for a moment and allow someone else who's too fresh to come in, like a ball game, And the coach,
Yeah.
I'm fatigued, coach. I'm tired. You can see them
Yeah.
barely getting up the court or running down the field, or they took a hit
Yeah.
or something, whatever it was, and they need to get out and be refreshed.
Yeah.
We all need to be refreshed. And so for that support person not to feel guilty when it's time or when you feel a need to back away and be refreshed, to be strengthened. You
Mm.
need to be encouraged as well, to pay attention to your spiritual health, to go for those walks, to declutter, decompress, clear your mind because you still have other responsibilities too. And so, yes, I believe that having that conversation, not being afraid, because I can even sense that caregiver, I'm saying caregiver, that support person, that's our
Mhm.
safe person. I can, even as we're talking about this, I can sense how how anxiety and fear can just sit with rest on them,
Yes.
afraid to have that conversation or to say or to admit,
Mhm.
because they care about us, they love us, they want to be
Mhm.
there for us, and to imagine, to think that we're depending on them, and to imagine or consider not being able to show up when
Yeah.
they're needed or as they're needed, how that can fill you with anxiety and stress and guilt.
I just feel so inspired right now. I think that this is like a whole grief class that you and I are conceiving as we're talking about this, because I don't know about you, you're a grief expert. I talk a lot about grief and I support a lot of people in grief, and I don't know if I've ever had the conversation of what are healthy boundaries for the support person. Right? We talk about boundaries for the grieving person, boundaries with family and all of those kind of things. But I look at the people who are walking alongside of me. And here's the thing is grief and pain are a navel gazer, right? Grief makes you selfish.
Mhm.
I naturally am a very empathic, aware person. And there are things that my friends say to me that happened in that year after Micah's loss that I was oblivious to. And they were big things in my friends' lives, and I was oblivious. And so there were points where my friends did experience burnout, and there were some times where there was just a pulling away instead of having a healthy conversation of, this is where I'm at, this is where my needs are. And we don't want to put our needs on the grieving person, but we also don't want to disappear and ghost them, right? Like, I think that's what's so painful when you are the grieving person, is when people are just evaporating, right? And you don't know why. And did I do something? Did I hurt you? Like, are you sick of me? Whatever that may look like. And so I think it'd be really powerful. I know now, in retrospect, that a lot of my friends spent time with some counselors so that they could figure out how to walk with me, so that they could figure out what their boundaries were, so that they could feed their families and go for walks and get to the gym, right? And so I think that this is a big deal, Gwendolyn.
Yeah, I was about to say that sometimes our support group needs support.
Mm-hmm.
And even for you, I'll say, as you were saying, things happened during the time, that certainly during the first year or so of your husband's transition, where things also happened in your friend's life and you were oblivious to it because you were still in that fog of grief,
Mm-hmm.
that shock. It, and that's the thing. It's so, grief is so expansive, and there's, for a while, for a time, that's what guides our world. And so that's where we are. We live in that space, and the only thing that we can really focus on, or that really stands out to us, is our own pain. And so to have loving friends, caring friends who were able to say, "Hey, I need help here," or because I don't know if she's hearing me. I don't know what's going on. To know that that's okay. And you said something about boundaries. As grieving people, it's important that we set boundaries around our grief, around what's helpful for us on
Mm-hmm.
our journey. You hit the nail on the head. it's also important for that support person to set boundaries, to know their limitations, to know this is beyond what I can do to help you at this point. My friend, I suggest, I have a resource. There's a counselor, there's a spiritual advisor, there's, a support group, there's a friend of whatever, whomever, whatever that support uh, resource is, to help you. They can direct you for that, but they have to understand also that they need to set boundaries.
Yeah.
Walking with us on our grief journey isn't supposed to, number one, hurt relationships.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to tear us apart. It's not supposed to have another person so fatigued that they begin to develop other emotions sometimes, anger, resentment. We have to be truthful about the whole picture,
Yeah.
because
Everyone has needs. The caregivers
everyone
have needs. Yeah.
and that support person has needs as well. So understanding that you have to set some boundaries around your what you are willing to do, what you're able to do, what's healthy for you, what you're capable of doing as you're supporting a grieving person.
I think that this is a follow-up interview right here. I'm excited about this because there's a lot of content on what not to do, but there's not nearly as much content on how to do it well. Clearly, this has become a passion for you in your life, studying with David Kessler and becoming a grief educator, and you wrote a book. You don't know exactly how I feel. I love that. Did I quote the title correctly?
You don't know just how I feel.
Just how I feel. I mean, I'm like, oh my gosh, if that just makes your skin crawl, right? Because you know that they don't know. No one does, right? I've lost intimately, and I don't know just what you feel, Gwendolyn. You have a unique experience, and it just rubs up against the soul like a nail file, those words do. And so it was so well titled. Tell me about how that book came to be and what you're passionate about that's in there.
Certainly, actually, Rachel, I was writing another book,
Oh,
and
really?
the grief chapter, I had one chapter on grief, and grief was like 40 pages. And so we decided to,
Make it a
we
whole
think
book.
we need to just need to just focus on grief, because evidently that's where God was leading me. And so that's where the book came from. I was writing another book, and grief was there. But the title resonates with so many people. It resonated with me when I was given that one. It was like, wow. So many people will tell you, countless people have told me. People always say, or often say, oh, I know just how you feel. My loved one transition. Oh, I know just how you feel. My relative transition. My pet transitioned.
Oh, let's just talk about that for a minute. Can we never ever hear that again? I know how you feel. My dog died. Like, can we
Yes.
never hear that? Okay, anyway,
No,
I'm on a
yeah.
soapbox. Continue.
I know just how you feel. But grief is so unique. It's unique to each individual, because our relationship with the person who transitioned was unique. My husband and I grieved totally different over our children, most recently our son Miles. So although there may be a common response, or a person in common who transitioned, you can't necessarily know just how a person feels. You may know some of the emotions, some of the responses, but you can't know, because your relationship with your husband was so unique and so special. And the bond was so intimate and so beautiful that only you know just how you feel. I can't know that. And
Yeah,
so
you and
people often
Jesus.
say, I
Yeah.
know how you feel, but you really don't, because you were not in the relationship in the capacity that grieving person was in the relationship with their loved one.
It's so good. And I don't think it's possible to write a book without growing through it and learning. They say like writing a book is like having a baby. You've birthed something new and beautiful when it's done. And so, what are some of the things that you learned in the process of writing your book?
The first thing I learned was I was able to make it through the process because there's this fear. For me, there was this fear that I would be overtaken with pain, that I wouldn't be able to finish it. But what I learned through the process of writing this book is that, and when I started, I started this writing the book on grief, my heart was so compassionate. I felt so much compassion for other grieving people, for other hurting people, that on the tough days, I was able to say, who am I writing this for? I want someone else to know that there's hope. I want someone else to know that they're not alone. I want someone else to know that someone understands the reality, the real side of grief, not what we cover up. You know, we cover up so much in grief. We cover
Right.
up. And so I learned that number one, I could make it through. I could make it through. I also learned that it was very healing. It was very healing for me, very therapeutic. And I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about the person I wanted to become. I learned a lot about being authentic in this area of grief and opening up the conversation of grief was something that we needed, that not only I needed, but other people needed. So writing this book it was freedom. I experienced such a freedom that I hadn't necessarily experienced before,
Part of your healing process. Yeah.
part of my healing process. And so it was, just writing this book has been such an honor. I'll say it's an honor because it's an honor to share the knowledge that I've been able to gain, the experience that my grief journey, the jewels. You know, there's so much pain on the grief journey, but I found, Rachel, there are also jewels that we
Yes.
can glean from. There are nuggets along the journey.
Yeah. And you have to be faithful. You have to be faithful to find those, right? You have to stay in the process. And that's you talking about who you wanted to become through grief.
Yes. Knowing that I still had purpose, that was one of the biggest lessons I learned, that I still had purpose. Because sometimes when our loved one transitions, we believe that our life, though it's changed, we believe that our life is over, that we'll never experience joy, happiness, that we have no purpose, or the purpose that we thought our life, was
Right.
intended for our life is
Or
totally
it
over.
impacts a key role, right? Like, well, if my
Yes,
husband passed away, am I a wife? What am I if I'm not a wife? If my son passed away, what does that mean about me as a mother or me as a daughter or a son if I lose my parent, you know? And so we have to have this entire reorganization around
yes,
identity. Grief affects our identity so
it
deeply.
does. It does. So I learned during the process of writing the book that I do have purpose. I still have purpose. And that's so important. Expanded. Did it take the transition of my loved one for me, of my son? Did it take that for me to walk into this purpose? No. But because my son transitioned, I am now able, if I choose to, walk in this purpose. And I choose to walk in it because I choose to help others. I choose, it's a choice, it's my choice. But Miles didn't have to die. I was already helping people, but
Right.
Miles didn't have to die. But because he did die, in order for me to move forward, not to move on, that's another thing we have to talk about,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but to move forward in life with purpose, that's what I did. I made the choice that I want to live, and I want his death to have meaning, not in the fact that he died, how he died, or that he died, but meaning for me to be able to move forward. So what I'm doing now is it's a strength. It gives me strength to know that. It brings me comfort to know that I'm helping someone. I'm carrying his memory forward. It gives me comfort to know that he's not forgotten. He'll never be forgotten. It may give you comfort to know that you're speaking to and encouraging hurting people to move forward in life as a result of carrying his memory, as his memory, his love, everything that he meant to you, everything that he means to you, because he's with you and God's allowing him to guide you, and God's guiding you on this path.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, having a sense of purpose is one of the important pieces of healing where, I think that there are so many foundations that are birthed out of that. You founded Sisters in Solace. You wrote this book. I mean, here's the Hopecast, right? Like, it would have never looked like the Hopecast without losing Micah. And so I think that that's such an important point. One of the things that you talked about in your book that I think is really powerful is how to have a conversation around grief with a grieving person. And that's something that you wrote about. Will you tell us how people should or should not step into that space?
This particular topic is so special to me because it has the ability to either build a person up or tear them down. When we enter into a conversation with a grieving person, it certainly can be uncomfortable. We recognize that. We've already established that. But we have been so conditioned to saying and responding to grieving people in a way that tries to placate or tries to, it's so surface. It's not necessarily a deep conversation. We want to say easy words. And we know. Let me just say this, that people mean well. They mean well when
They're doing the best they can with what they have. Yeah.
they're doing the best that they can with what they have. But it's time for us to expand that conversation and educate others on some of the appropriate, number one, what we say, how it impacts the grieving person, and then what we can do to improve or to make it better or to change the dialogue around grief. So there are two angles on this really quickly. It's what we say to grieving person, and then there's the overall conversation around grief. So let's just talk about what we say to the grieving person for a moment. We go into a conversation, we feel that we have to say something, and that what we say has to be something that is going to impact them, that's going to make them feel better. We've already established that chances are what we say won't make them feel better, but we can be courteous in what we say. But saying things like they're in a better place, God needed another angel, God knows how much you can bear. At least you had them for as long as you did. Well, all of these things that we say, be strong, don't cry. To children, oh, you're the man of the house now that dad's gone. All these kinds of things. We say them because society has taught us to say them. They've been passed down through cultures, our religious institutions, our social organizations, community organizations. It's what we know. I've been guilty of saying them before. Most of us have been.
Me too.
But,
Yeah.
and we say them to offer comfort, but often, most of the time, they offer more pain than they do comfort. And I have talked to countless people who have said that it makes them so angry, but they don't feel the freedom to say anything or to correct anything because people are trying to be kind.
Yeah. Can you imagine at the reception if you're like, I don't want to hear what you have to say?
Right.
They're throwing those at you. Yeah, that's a tough response space.
But understanding also that we don't necessarily have to have anything to say. Often when we extend our basic condolences, I'm so sorry for your loss. I can't imagine what you're going through. I'm sorry that you're hurting so deeply during this time. Something very basic. We receive that. That's enough often without going into those other words and those other cliches that we use that are more harmful than they are helpful. And so people will never know that what we're saying to the grieving person is hurtful if we don't talk about it, if we don't tell them, if we don't let them know that it's hurtful. And we don't necessarily have to address it. Well, I've addressed it in the book, and others have addressed it, I'm sure, in books or in other areas. But it's time that we expand that conversation. And as we talk about it in our circles of influence, as we talk
Yeah.
about it and address it in our communities with our family and friends, then it expands outward.
Gwendolyn, you are such a rich resource around this. I noticed that you were talking about conversations in social media, and we do so much of our lives on social media. And, I've found out that people from childhood and things passed away because of social media, right? Like, I'm not going to get a call or hear about it at church or something because they're back in my hometown. And so we say, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss, or, we send emojis and broken hearts, or we say sending thoughts and prayers. And one of the things that I've noticed in this conversation around grief and loss is people kind of lashing back out, which people are always happy to lash back out, behind a computer screen, where we wouldn't do that at the service after the funeral, but saying, oh, your thoughts and prayers aren't enough. Like, your thoughts and prayers aren't going to cut it, right? But the reality is that, we don't not want to be responded to on social media. We don't want people to ignore us because they don't know what else to say besides, I love you, I'm sorry, I'm sending my thoughts and prayers in your direction. We don't want that to stop. And so you're getting this backlash from people. And yet it's like, how can we be compassionate and handle those conversations in social media?
Social media has opened up an entirely different area of grief. Public, we're grieving publicly for the world sometimes, as it were, to witness. And it has its ups and it has its downs. It has its pluses and minuses, pros and cons. One thing that's important to understand is that we cannot control every aspect of social media. People on social media still want to extend their sympathies, their condolences, and as in any other area of life and social media, sometimes you have to have thick skin. And when we're grieving, our emotions are surface.
Our skin is very thin when we're in
Our
pain.
skin
Yeah.
is very, very thin. And sometimes we may have to pull away from social media. Extending our thoughts and our prayers, that's good. It's good that people have that avenue, that they have that medium to extend sympathies, to learn about the transition of someone we know or a loved one. And so it's how we use it, just as how we use it every day, is how we use social media. I know when I said Milesy was my pet name for my son,
I
Miles.
love that.
Milesy transitioned after the immediate family was notified, immediate friends, those close friends and family. I posted on social media of his transition. It's the hardest post I've had to do in my life. Over the weeks, even the weeks that followed his transition, there was such an outpouring of love. There was such an outpouring. The response was just incredible, and so that meant something to me. And each person in my family And so, but each person is different. Fortunately, I did not have anyone to say anything cruel, insensitive, while I know other people who have experienced the insensitivity of people on social media after their loved one transitioned. I've heard of people just bringing up ugly, we'll leave it there, and
Same.
saying ugly
Yeah.
things. And sometimes that's why, sometimes we have to pull away, delete it, close it, whatever you need to do for your own spirit, to keep your own spirit safe, to nurture your own self in your healing. But social media has its ups and its downs. And even in grief, now we live stream. Let's talk about even live stream
Yeah.
services and
Yeah.
all kinds of things. So it's here to stay, I believe. But we have to gauge how we respond, who we respond to. You don't have to fight every battle. Don't fight them. You don't have to fight battles online. You're
That's
one.
that's a whole sermon for a whole nother day. You don't have to fight your battles online. There's so much there. Gwendolyn, you have so much to offer people in your book and on your website. Please tell them where they can find you and how they can get a hold of your book.
Website, GwendolynOBurton.com. And there you can find my email and all the relevant information. And you can purchase the book there, as well as Amazon. The book is on Amazon. Some Barnes and Nobles have them, or you can request it at your local bookstore.
And if they wanted to know more about Sisters in Solace, is that on your website?
Well, the Sister in Solace is a Facebook group,
Okay.
and you can contact me regarding that. And
Okay.
it's also a local group or a group where we meet monthly, either online or in person. So, but yes, you can
That's a
certainly.
beautiful resource.
We'll be expanding
Yeah.
that outreach very soon. So you can certainly contact me.
Wonderful. Gwendolyn, this was a gift and a pleasure meeting you, hearing your story, reaping in this, beautiful harvest of all that you have worked for and what you have said that you wanted to bring forward, right? Bringing forward into this part of your life after Miles' transition. And so I'm so grateful to have had this conversation with you, and it's going to be an amazing resource for people who've experienced loss.
It's been such an honor to be with you, Rachel. And I just wish your listeners healing and hope as they continue to navigate their grief journey.
Yes, me too. Friend, thank you so much for joining us today on part 2 of my interview with Gwendolyn Burton. Just know that you are thought of and cared for both here and in the time when we're away. If you would rate, review, and subscribe, you can help send hope and light to friends and people who are hurting and push that message forward. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me on this week's episode of the Hopecast with Rachael Flick.
You've been listening to the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. To find out more, go to rachaelflick.com. While you are there, you can book Rachel for your next speaking engagement. Her inspiring message will be sure to engage and touch the heart of your audience at your next conference, church event, or business function. Go to rachaelflick.com to book her today. While you're online, you can discover more information about all of the platforms that this podcast is on. If you listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, we would appreciate it if you would subscribe and leave us a review. To follow Rachel on social media, simply click on the social media icons at the top of the page and you will be directed to those sites. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time for another edition of the Hopecast with Rachael Flick.